With the NAR settlement coming into effect, a lot of people are curious as to how to justify your value as a buyer's agent. And this is something that in my market, I've had to do since the day that I got licensed, because buyer representation agreements were necessary and required by our local market center in order to work with buyers properly. And so what I want to do, and what I'm going to do in this video, is walk you through every single little detail that I included in my buyer's presentation in order to convert at scale and justify my value and full commission for every buyer that I worked with. So if you're struggling to understand how to justify your value and how to position yourself amongst other agents, this is going to give you a ton of unique ideas of how you can differentiate yourself from every other agent in your market so that you stand out, stand above, and become unique in your market center so that buyers can very clearly and obviously see why you justify your commission. So let's go ahead and share my screen here and walk through this together. So what we're going to do is unpack each of these 9 steps here. So first, what I'm going to do is break down the preparation and research that you need to do ahead of time before going into the buyer's consultation. Then I'm going to unpack 3 sets of questions. Questions are the most important aspect of a buyer's presentation or a listing presentation. The reason being is that questions control conversations. A lot of people jump straight into a buyer's presentation or a listing presentation, and they just go straight to statement dumping, and they assume that they know what their client is looking for. But what I've seen through experience and through asking the right questions is that what most buyers care about might not be what's in your presentation, or what might not be the focal point of your presentation. And if we can ask the right questions, what this allows us to do is tailor our entire presentation to exactly what the buyers care about so that you can win the buyer's presentation every single time. So first, we're going to walk through some general questions, then some important qualifying questions so that you don't waste a ton of time working with clients who aren't serious or aren't qualified. And then we're going to walk through some of the more strategic questions that are really going to give you a competitive advantage and edge over other agents who wouldn't even consider asking these questions. Then I'm going to walk you through how to properly explain your process and then your value proposition. That is going to make sure that you are able to justify your value very clearly so that by the end of it, when we go to the buyer's representation agreement, they're pretty much ready to sign and asking for it. Now, also, number 7 is going to be really important. Expectations and timelines. And this is going to allow you to generate much more 5-star reviews on Google. It's going to allow you to get more repeat and referral business, but it's also going to almost guarantee that the process of working with that buyer goes incredibly well every single time. And you're not going to have these nightmare situations or clients messaging you at ungodly hours of the day, because you can actually control that narrative ahead of time. But most agents don't take the time to set proper expectations and map out a proper timeline. If you do this ahead, it is going to save you so much headache, so much wasted time, and nobody does it. And then at the end, I'm going to talk to you about how to frame next steps so that, again, you're always one step ahead of the buyers. And if you stay 1 or 2 steps ahead of the buyers, you're going to look like the authority, you're going to look like the professional, and it's going to separate you from other agents that really treat the buying process very casually, nonchalant, and they really don't treat it like a business, like they actually have a plan, because you probably know by now, most don't actually have a plan. So let's go into the preparation. This is where I typically, once I have a buyer's consultation set up, maybe it's in 3 days from now, 2 days from now, 1 day from now, but it's in the future. You know that. Typically, in order to set it up, you've had a quick phone call with them. So you're going to have a phone call with them, and then you're going to set up an in-person meeting, whether it be at a coffee shop, your office, a co-working space, whatever your situation is. But you would have talked to them in some capacity through text, email, or phone in order to get a general consensus of what they're looking for. Right? Are they looking for a multi-million-dollar property? Are they looking for an acreage? Are they looking for a condo in downtown? But you have a general idea of what they're looking for. So if you do have that context, if you don't, it's okay. I'll walk you through what to do on the next steps. But if you do have that context, The more you show up prepared, the more the clients are going to see the value in you and see that you have your ducks in a row. Because what they're looking for is guidance. They want their hand held every step of the way, and they just want it to be a seamless process with not much wasted time or any at all. So if you have some information ahead of time, the first thing that you want to do is walk through the current inventory and get an idea in the landscape of what's available based on their current desires. You also want to get a general idea of average days on market so that you can help them understand, hey, if this property comes up and average days on market is about 14 or 21 or whatever that looks like, you can pre-frame and help them understand whether they need to act quick or whether they have some time in order to make calculated decisions. Now, I'm going to give you a ninja trick at the end of this where it's one simple question where if you find your buyers sometimes are on the fence, they're humming and hawing of whether to write an offer on whatever property that they like, but are wondering if they should wait for something better to come up, I've got an insane strategy to abolish that every single time. It works so well. I haven't shared it on any of my other videos yet, but I will at the end of this. List the sales price. So you can know, are average properties going above list price? Are they going below list price? What does that look like? So that you can, again, once you get to the meeting, you can give them context as to what they should expect, right? Should they expect to pay, 3% over list price? 3% over their budget or under the budget? Also, general performance of real estate, because they're probably going to ask you, how is the market? And where a lot of agents can't justify their value is somebody's going to ask how the market is, and you're going to say, well, it's pretty good, or it's not that great, or it's slow, or it's hot, or just very generic statements. And that never makes you look like the professional. It also doesn't look like you can guide them and thus making it difficult to justify your full commission. But if you have a really good idea of how different styles of properties are performing and in different regions, so maybe they're looking for a detached single family home. Okay, well, do you know how single family detached homes are performing in each quadrant of your market versus downtown? Do you have an understanding of the data around that? Because when they ask you questions, if you can give clear, concise responses with data-driven answers, you're going to position yourself very well. So doing that prep work is going to make you look like the authority, and it's also going to show that you care. And that's what a lot of buyers just want to know, is that you're going to hold your hand, you're going to hold their hand rather, and that you genuinely care. You're invested in this journey with them. You're not just showing up casually, unprepared, winging it. You're showing up like you would at a listing presentation. You've looked at comps, you have an idea. Again, I know this is the preparation and we don't know all the details, which we're going to get to, but the more prep you can do ahead of time with the little information that you know, you can actually find out quite a bit. So now let's go to the general questions. These are going to be incredible, and I'll unpack all of them so that you understand why they're necessary. Why are you looking to buy right now? That's going to give you their motivation. Are they looking to move up because they just had a kid or they have a kid on the way? Are they looking to move to, from downtown to a rural area because they want more peace and quiet, or they're thinking of starting a family? Are they downsizing? What are they looking for? Why do they want to buy? That's going to make sure that you understand their motivation. What kind of home are you looking to buy? Well, now that's going to give you the criteria of the searches that we're going to do. What is your budget? Because they should have, and we'll address this if they haven't, but they should have gotten pre-approved. Is their budget $500,000? Okay, so maybe they're pre-approved for $500,000, but they only want to spend $450,000. Okay, but what is the budget that they're comfortable with? And also, what are the specifics that are non-negotiable? And I'll get to why we're asking all these detailed questions in a second here, which is going to, again, allow you to position yourself as the authority. Well, what are the non-negotiables? Does it need a garage? Does that garage have to be attached? Does it need a certain number of bedrooms? Does it need a finished basement? Does it need a pool? Like, what are the absolute non-negotiables? I don't care what the whole house looks like. If it doesn't have this, I don't want it. You need to find that out. But also, in contrast to that, what are the specifics of your wish list? What would you like to have? Not what you need to have, but what would you like to have? And that's going to give you some options in order to better understand some of the cool things that you can highlight on properties as they start to come up on the market. Are there any specific areas that you would like to be in? Now, it's your job as an agent to explore opportunities and communities that maybe they haven't even considered that would be a good fit based on you asking these questions and understanding the motivation with question number 1. But this is going to help you hone your search in. And lastly, number 7, are there better times for you to view homes? This is going to be important because, again, if they are working a 9 to 5 and they can only view homes on the evenings, you better make sure going forward that you're going to be blocking off some evenings. But if they work during the weekdays, well, now you have an idea of how you can prepare your schedule to properly service these clients. Now, the qualifying questions. These are going to be really important, especially with the NAR settlement. Are you currently working with any agents to view homes? Well, you want to make sure that they're not wasting your time and working with a bunch of other agents on the side. Openly ask them. It's not offensive. It's not going to push them away. Just casually ask it. What is your timeline? Is it 3 months? Is it 3 weeks? Is it 9 months? Like, how quickly do we need to be on top of the ball with this, right? And also, obviously, have you been pre-approved? If yes, who is the lender you're working with so that you can validate that and communicate with them as you get closer to hopefully writing an offer? If no, do you have a lender that you're working with? So if no, you could maybe refer them a couple of options that could be a good fit for somebody that you know is going to deliver and get good results. But now this is where you start getting strategic. Have you ever worked with a realtor in the past? That is one of the best questions you could ever ask. If yes, what did you like about them and what did you not like about them? And what this is going to do is it's going to give you the answers, the insight, the ammunition you need in order to make sure you deliver an unbelievable experience for the buyers. Because if they liked certain things with the past agents they used, maybe in the current city or a different city in the past, well, you want to make sure you do that. And if they say certain things that they didn't like about the most common one, communication. Oh, I hated that the agent never communicated. I hated that they never responded. I hated that it took them a day to respond. Well, you want to make sure that your communication is dialed. And just by asking that one simple question, you're able to basically get a full picture of exactly how to crush it for this buyer. If no, maybe they're first-time home buyers, what are you looking for in an agent? That's going to get you the same answer. I want communication. I just want my hand held. I want quick responses. I want somebody that's going to properly advise us, meaning don't put your commission before their best interest like some desperate agents do, unfortunately. But those 2 questions there are life-changing for you being able to deliver an unbelievable experience. What would the perfect home buying experience look like for you? In terms of how does it look like going through this process? It's a similar question to number 1, but again, it's just asking them, if you could paint a perfect picture of what this relationship's going to look like, what would that be? And lastly, what could happen that might upset you? You definitely want to avoid that. Typically, it's going to come back to commission, or typically it's going to come back to somebody not making themselves available or allocating time properly. But these strategic questions are going to be incredible for getting all the answers you need to deliver an incredible buyer's experience so that you could justify your commission. The next thing you want to do is break down your process. Now, there's a couple things here in the home search that are going to differentiate you from other agents. The first thing, explain your fiduciary duties. Like, even just saying, hey, John and Sarah, before we get into this, I really just want to explain my fiduciary duties to you. Well, that's going to unpack undivided loyalty, confidentiality, full commitment, and all of the fiduciary duties that you owe to your clients by working with them with the buyer's representation agreement. Even just hearing the word fiduciary literally just gives people an extra layer of confidence because they haven't heard a single other agent talk about the fiduciary duties, let alone somebody unpack it and give context as to what they are. But when they hear that you have undivided loyalty to them, full commitment, full confidentiality, putting their best interests first, that gives them a sense of comfort. And so doing that is what I did at the beginning of every single buyer's consultation. It really just kind of gave them a breath. It let them just take a breathe. And so by doing that, it's really going to differentiate you. Now, the next is explaining the home search. Well, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to do the custom home search. Now that you know their criteria, their non-negotiables, their wish list, the areas, the types of home and their budget, you can set them up on a custom search, not a generic search, but a custom one. Now, the reason why I wanted to go above and beyond by asking all those questions is because on my MLS, we have something called concierge mode. In concierge mode, you approve listings before they get to your clients. So one of the ways that I justified my value is during the buyer's consultation, I would say, hey, by the way, before I set you up and before you start seeing listings, I'm going to make sure that I save you time. I don't want you wasting your time looking at a ton of listings that I know are not going to be the right fit for you. I want to save you time. I want to make it convenient for you to find the right home. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set you up on a custom search. And based on that search criteria, I'm going to disable and delete any listing that comes through, gets listed that I know doesn't meet your criteria whatsoever. Doesn't have your non-negotiables, isn't in the right style. And that way, the only properties you see are going to be the ones that are a good fit. I'm also not just going to explore what's coming on the MLS and currently on the MLS, but I'm going to explore expired, terminated, canceled, and withdrawn listings. Because if there's something there that's a good fit, I'm going to call up the agent and say, hey, I saw that property, terminated or expired a couple of months ago, but my clients are really interested. It seems like it could be an accurate fit. Are your clients still considering making a move? Well, that's going an extra layer beyond what most buyer's agents would do. Engaging with top listing agents that are in the areas you're interested in. So if they're looking in a certain area and that area is dominated by a couple agents that have all the listings, which most are, well, you can call up those agents and say, hey, John Smith, I know that you're the marketing expert and you're one of the top agents in X community. I've got a buyer and they're looking for this type of home. I know that you've had some of those in the past, and I just wanted to see, do you have any that are coming up in the coming months or the coming weeks? That again is showing your vested interest in going above and beyond for your clients. Off-market properties. This is another great one. And I'll talk to you about what I did in order to really differentiate myself from other agents that blew my buyers' agents' minds in a couple minutes here. I'm also going to talk with builders and new construction relationships that have established if they are interested in a new development property. And so it's not just saying, hey, I'm going to set you up on the MLS. It's saying, I'm going to do all of these things, which requires my time and my expertise. Then what we're going to do is we're going to coordinate showings. And what we're going to do with those showings is I'm actually going to physically print off the MLS data sheet and highlight the non-negotiables and key information, hence why I always have a highlighter, so that when we're walking through, you can take notes of what you like and what you don't like about those properties. But at a quick glance, you can see the highlighted information, the square footage, the bedrooms, the bathrooms, the year it was made, any sort of key information about that. That is making it convenient. That's adding to the experience. Submitting offers and negotiating offers, inspection and appraisal review, coordinating with necessary parties for closing. And I'm also going to give you a moving checklist and a home maintenance checklist at the end of this when you move into your new property, so that way you know exactly what you need to do ahead of time. And again, this goes back to making the process convenient. Most people just buy a house and then they forget to change their mailing address. They forget to set up utilities on time. They forget to do all of these little things that you could save them that hassle by reminding them and saying, hey, here's a 1 month out checklist, a moving checklist of everything you need to do once we find the right property. And then also the home maintenance checklist. Hey, here's not only a big list of the things you need to do once a year, once every 5 years, once every 10 years, whatever that might look like, but also here's my recommended partners that can help you with all of this. Here's my plumber, here's my roofer, here's my landscaper, here's my snow removal guy, here's my cleaner, right? Here's my furnace guy. Okay, well, the more convenient you make it for your buyers, the more they're going to see value in you, because oftentimes most buyers agents don't show or talk about any of this. And so that makes it super convenient. Now, this goes down to the value proposition that I wanted to explain as I touched on a couple of minutes ago. One of the things that I would do, and this is a great way for you to get listings I know this is about buyers presentations, but this will get you more listings. I would tell them, hey, maybe you're in a market where there's not many properties on the market. Maybe it's super hot and there's not much inventory. Well, go make inventory, right? It's just that simple. A lot of people, overcomplicate this. So what I would do is I used to door knock the entire community that they were interested in. So if they were interested in, Auburn Bay, a lake community that's near me right now, I door knock that entire community. And guess what happens? Number one, it shows that you're willing to put the work in to find them the right property if it's not listed yet. But simultaneously, what happens almost every time is that you get people through door knocking, and I've got videos on this, so if you want those videos, just drop a comment and we'll give them to you. But you're going to find properties with people that are actually interested in selling, but that doesn't have their non-negotiables, so it doesn't happen to be the right fit for them. But you're showing and proving to your buyers that you're willing to do the work, and then you're just got a listing as well. So now you're getting listings while properly servicing a buyer and justifying your value. It's a win-win situation. Off-market listings with my brokerage, right? My current brokerage at EXP has a full database of this, but also my past brokerage had a full database of it as well. Right? That's a huge value proposition compared to the brokerages that don't even consider off-market properties. Relationships with home builders, right? Establishing those connections. Negotiating strategies. This was a big one. I would always explain that I would never split the difference. I would always make sure that I treat their money like my own. And even if I can save them $1,500, $500, $1,000, $2,000, those little increments show that covers part of their closing costs. That covers their moving costs, whatever that might be. But just showing that you treat their money like your own really goes a long way with them. And then lastly, we talked about concierge mode on the MLS, making sure that I'm going to save you time as the buyer. I'm going to filter out all the distractions, all the nonsense, all the things I know aren't going to be the right fit so that you only see and spend your time looking at the ones that do meet your criteria. Now, lastly, before we get into the next steps, it's really important to set expectations, and then we'll talk about the timeline. And this is how I worked with so many buyers, but never had to show more than 10 homes to get a buyer to write an offer, which is crazy because I hear so many people saying, I showed them 27 homes, 35 homes before they bought. That's a ton of wasted time. And that is your problem in most cases. There are rare cases where they're just crazy buyers, but in most cases, it's your problem for not setting proper expectations up front before starting the journey. So again, looking at the expectations, you're going to be helping them filter their search and tailor it to them. You need to tell them, hey, if their criteria changes, please let you know. Please let me know, right? So if I'm working with a buyer and they realize, hey, really starting to consider this other area, or maybe the detached single family home is just a little bit too much for us based on the price point where we're not able to get a new enough home. We want to now explore attached homes. Okay, tell them that if their criteria ever changes, to please let you know. It sounds obvious, but sometimes they don't. If you see a number of homes, we will view up to 5 at a time and explain to them the importance of not viewing too many at once. I see people that will go on these buyer's tours of like 10, 15 homes. Well, by the 6th home, they can't even remember the details of the first home. So that's why it's important to bring those physical MLS sheets where they can take notes, and you've already done the work of highlighting the important things and the non-negotiables. But what I would do is I would say, hey, we're going to look at this list of homes based on the concierge search. And ideally, there's going to be 5 to 10 homes that really pique your interest. Well, if there's 10 or 9 or whatever, we're going to look at 5 at once and then 5 the next day. And what we're going to do after that is we're going to filter that list by your top 3 or whatever it might look like. And after that, we're going to view those top 3 back to back again, and then we're going to make a decision. Pre-frame those expectations so they don't think you're a glorified Uber driver just driving them around for free all day long and showing every property under the sun. Set the expectation. That gives you control, that makes you look like the authority, and that gives you the look of a professional, like you've done it before and like you have expectations of yourself and your standards of the quality of service you provide. If something comes up that we need to know immediately, or if something comes up that we need to view immediately, let's look at that, right? So let's say a property comes up and not much inventory, right? Low days on market, hot market, not much in inventory. Ask them, hey, if they've got a 9-to-5 job and something comes up at noon and that might go under contract by like 7 p.m., what do we do in that case? Can I take you away from work? Can I call you? Can I text you? What do we do? What would you like me to do, right? Go through that scenario with them so that if it does happen, you can know how to handle it. Ask them how you want to be communicated with, right? Set honest expectations here. This is so important, right? I hear so many agents that are like, Mike, I'm so sick of clients calling me at 11 p.m. Well, that's your fault because you told your clients when you started working with them because you wanted to bend over backwards for them, you thought that it was nice and beneficial to say you can contact me whenever you want. Well, if you say that, they're going to do that. And if you then start complaining about it or not responding, that's your fault because they're going to be pissed, but you said that they could. So set expectations up front and just say, hey, I prefer to be communicated with through text. And also, I'm a big family guy. And so from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. or 7 p.m. onward, I don't actually check my phone because I'm spending time with my family. And if they say, well, that's not acceptable, I want to be able to text you at 10 or 11 p.m., then they're not the type of client you want to work with. But if you set that expectation and let them know up front, then if you say, hey, after 7 p.m., I don't really respond because I'm spending time with my kids and my spouse, and they message you at 9 p.m., they're not expecting a response until the next day because you told them. It's such a simple thing that will save you so much headache and so much frustration. And here's the big question that I alluded to in the beginning. Let's say your clients find a property that they really like, but maybe there's one little thing and they're like, hey, maybe a property is going to come up that has that one last little thing that we really, really want. So we're thinking about just waiting. This is the question I want you to ask your clients every single time. It will change the experience. Ask them the question, hey, that property that you really like, if that sold tonight, would you be disappointed? Simple question. If the answer is yes, write an offer. If the answer is no, continue the search. Again, I'll say it. If that home sold tonight and it was no longer available tomorrow, would you be upset? Knowing that a better one might not come up. If the answer is yes, write an offer. If the answer is no, keep the search going. Plain and simple. And that has helped me get so many buyers off the hump and actually write an offer. You'd be mind blown. Now, also, you might be in a multiple offer situation. Have that conversation with them. Hey, market's super hot. Properties are going, the list of sales price at X% over sales price in X amount of days on average. And so if we get in a multiple offer situation, are you open to that? Right? And just have those expectations discussed. And then we want to unpack the buyer's agreement, right? Now, you're going to have a buyer's representation agreement that you need to walk them through. You should be savvy with this. You should reread it every day until it becomes second nature, which is what I did for my first month. Every day I read it for an hour until it got to the point where I knew everything on there, the fiduciary duties, all of the details. And when you present this, do it in a very professional, open, casual way. Where a lot of agents are going to get tripped up is they're so nervous and overwhelmed about this new change of having to justify your value and tell them about the commission that you're getting paid, that they're going to be like nervous or hesitant or weird about it. Well, how you present it is how they're going to receive it. So if you're all weird and off about like, oh my God, and we have to go through this agreement that you have to sign too, they're going to be like, what? Whereas if you just say, hey, awesome. So hopefully you see the value of me as a buyer's agent. Now, all the things that I'm going to do that have helped so many buyers achieve their dream outcome and get into their perfect property. Again, it's a ton of things that most agents just simply don't even do. And so now all that we need to do is go through the buyer's agreement together. I'll walk you through every step of the way, make sure that you've got full clarity, and then we can get started with the journey. Like so casual about it. And if you're casual about it, they're going to be like, okay, literally every single time. Explain the details to them. right? Explain the compensation details and how it works. Explain the fiduciary duties and how they work and what you're going to do above and beyond in order to help them. And then explain the importance of this to them. Don't make it about you, right? This buyer's representation agreement allows me to protect you as a buyer. If something goes sideways, this protects you. If I don't do my job, this protects you, right? People only care about what's in it for me. And if you explain it from the angle of, hey, I'm doing this because I care about you and I'm trying to protect you, not, hey, I'm doing this because I want to get paid, two completely different outcomes, right? So all that you need to do is explain why this is beneficial to them. And then lastly, what we want to do is we want to unpack the next steps. And this goes back to what I said in the beginning about always staying one step ahead of your competition, right? And one step ahead of your clients. And so we could say one step ahead of our clients, they're never going to ask you questions because most people just stop at that buyer's representation agreement. And then your clients are texting you hours later being like, hey, when are we going to get set up on that search? When are we going to get started? When are we going to be viewing showings? And they start to get in panic mode and anxiety. You can control that if you set proper expectations. And so what I encourage you to do is go in and say, hey, super awesome. We just signed the agreement. Now what I want to do is make sure that you understand the next steps and what I'm going to be working on to make sure this is an incredibly smooth and enjoyable experience. I'm going to be setting you up on the custom search tonight by 9 p.m., whatever that looks like. Explain the importance of keeping the search centralized, right? So if you set them up on a custom search, tell them not to go down the rabbit hole of Realtor.com or .ca, Zillow, Redfin, and other realtors' websites. Say, hey, this is going to give you access to everything. Please just keep your search centralized to this so we're able to keep communication on point and make sure that we're always on the same page and that I'm not lost and you're not lost. Also explain how to use the search. So if they like something, if they heart something, notifications, things like that, so that you know when you can go on to the next step. But again, if you tell them you're going to set it up by 9 p.m., you better make sure it's set up before 9 p.m. Otherwise, you're going to hear about it and you just disappointed them immediately. But again, tell them when the search is going to be set up so they're not asking you when it's going to be set up. You're going to send them a copy of the buyer's representation agreement, right? You can use apps on your phone to scan it and send them a copy of it so that they have access to that at any given time. And then excite them about the journey, right? Tell them how excited you are and about some of the people that you've worked with in the past or, whatever you're going to do above and beyond for them, and just get them pumped to get started and that you've got their best interest. You're going to take care of them. You're going to communicate on point and that you've set the proper expectations to set the journey up for success. So that's how I created my buyer's presentation. And again, it worked wonders. It allowed me to alleviate myself from all of the time-sucking headaches so many agents have had to deal with, but I never have because I set proper expectations, I communicated properly, I had a proper buyer's presentation, I was clear on my value proposition and how I was different than other agents, and I made sure that they were aware always of the next step. And I always stayed one or two steps ahead of them so that they were never concerned. So if you have any other questions about this, drop a comment below. We will respond to 100% of them. And again, if you like this, please give it a quick thumbs up so more agents can properly learn how to approach this. And subscribe if you haven't so you don't miss another video because I've got some incredible ones coming up that are going to make you a listing machine. So if you want more listings, make sure you subscribe. Otherwise, we'll see you in the next video.